everyone. So my mother-in-law visited over the holidays, and you always wonder where that story is going to go. And so my mother-in-law stayed for about a week or so, and it was a wonderful visit. It was a glorious visit. I love my mother-in-law, and I wanted to make sure that was on the record in case she watches this or listens to this talk. And one Sunday after church, she and I were standing out there, and someone came and got me because there was somebody who needed a place to stay that night. And so I talked to them a little, and I said, well, I really can't do anything right now. That's not my area of service. But if you call me on Monday, I could help you out perhaps. So he kind of said, oh, okay, that's fine. And then he started walking up the road. Well, I considered it mostly to be done. That was fine. Life would go on. I was going to go eat my lunch, and he was going to go maybe to another congregation and ask for some assistance. But then as I was walking to my car, I noticed my mother-in-law chasing him. And she's yelling at him. And I'm sitting there thinking, mother-in-law, just let it be. So next thing I know, she has chased this individual down, and my father-in-law and my mother-in-law have given him a ride down to the Super 8, and they are paying for him to stay at the hotel for the night. I wish I could say that I was like, well, that was really a great thing, but I was kind of annoyed. I was like, can you just listen to me? I know you're my mother-in-law, but can you just do what I say? But she couldn't. And so after I got through that, I realized, how come I can't be more like my mother-in-law? She is touched. She felt compassion. She cared about this person. And I'm sitting here as the preacher thinking, I just really want to go eat lunch. And if I had to deal with this meant that my lunch would be delayed. And so maybe I'll just do this on Monday, because on Monday I'm going to call Edward, and he and I really felt bad about myself, because she could not let this individual have an evening where he was going to be cold. It was $68, and she had no problem spending it. Well, I was sitting here thinking, well, maybe the church wants to do this, but I knew one thing for certain. I was in that situation. But it was more about, or it's not really about the money. I could afford $68. She could afford $68. The difference between my mother-in-law and me is that her heart was sympathetic. Her heart genuinely cared for this person's welfare. And I reflected on myself, and I thought, have I become so hard-hearted that I can't really live into somebody else's pain and situation? I think we all struggle, perhaps, with the idea of compassion. And maybe we have hardened our hearts to compassion. And I want to, as we continue our series on Become, I want to talk about compassion. When you think about becoming like Jesus Christ, as we looked at Become, we looked at encouragement. And this morning I want to look at the idea of compassion. If we're going to be like Jesus Christ, we need to be compassionate like Jesus Christ. But the text I want to use is from 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 to 18. 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 to 18. Look what it says. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God... Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but and in truth. John is making a very clear dichotomy here. He's saying, if you love God, sisters, but if you do not love God, you will not. For John, if you don't feel love, it means that you don't have the love. And so, how does the God compassion? The first thing that we need to realize is appreciation. Compassion is appreciation. Look how clear John states this. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brother. To have a compassionate heart, you have to have the mindset of being non-judgmental. I think a lot of you look at somebody, no matter if they're struggling financially, emotionally, spiritually, we automatically of being compassionate. When somebody is struggling emotionally, we sit back. Well, what do you expect? Heck, you deserved it. We never say that. But in our heart, and feeling their pain and circumstance, we automatically go to a judgmental state. We go, what did you do to help? If we should show compassion or not. We don't go to an attitude of Christ-like compassion. We go up a judgmental posture. Is this person worthy of compassion, and how did they contribute to it? But compassion is not derived by the person's worthiness. Compassion is derived. He said, compassionate with you. You are responsible to them, not because, but because God you compassion. And so you are only showing compassion as an extension of that. This is the mindset of the Good Shepherd. Look at John chapter 10, verse 11 to 13. I'm the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. He who is a hired hand is not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. We show compassion because we appreciate what God has done for us. We are compassionate because Jesus has already died for us. We are not that type of hired hand that when somebody goes through a difficult time, we step back. We do our very best to try to stay engaged into the situation so that we show them true love. The next way that we can learn compassion in our hearts is reception is compassion. Look at John's advice in 1 John chapter 3, verse 17. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God abide in him? Now there's a very important wording here. Yet closes his heart. What is John meaning by that? John literally means will not take pity, will not be empathetic. Now, you know what I mean here. There could be a situation, and maybe somebody's in a financial need, maybe somebody's in a spiritual need, maybe somebody's in an emotional need, and you are listening to this, and you notice yourself closing your heart to accept and to feel what they are feeling. That you're not showing any concern or caring because it's easier for you just to kind of shut down emotionally and not go there. Now, sometimes as Christians, we fall into the temptation of doing this. We close our hearts and still give. You know what I mean by this? Here's money, go away. Have we ever done that as Christians? Here's some financial sources. Here's some I can just pay. To have compassion. Compassion is not giving to somebody, not merely saying, here. Being in that situation and opening your heart to them, that you can feel what they're feeling, that you actually have sympathy and you have concern for them, that you're concerned with how what they're going through is affecting their lives and that it is sharing their life. Compassion is this: being willing to be tender to others' struggles. Being willing to be compassionate and concerned about somebody else's plight. John makes it very simple. If you see somebody in need, it's your job to relate to that. Not just buy them off, not push them off, but actually feel what is going on and opening yourself up to that reality. So, my friend Rusty, and I've known Rusty for many years, and Rusty's a preacher and he's a recruiter now for Heritage. And we were at this lectureship together, and we seem to see each other on these lectureships quite a bit. I stayed with him recently. He always lets me stay with him. I think he gets lonely at all these lectureships because he travels so much. So he's always happy to have somebody to annoy him on these times. So we would always go to Steak and Shake at about 11 o'clock at night and eat with all these preachers and mostly drink milkshakes. I know it's a hard life, but somebody has to be a preacher. And so we get in this car, and the guy walks up to us and knocks on the window. And I really wish I was somebody who would be like, oh, opportunity, the Lord will place before me to have. I just want to go to sleep. So I roll down the window, and he's like, hey, I need a place to stay tonight. Do you guys think you could help out? And I'm sitting there in my mind thinking, oh, what am I going to say? You know, is Rusty going to judge me if I don't give? So what should I do? Rusty, I look over. He's pulled out his wallet, and he's passing the guy $5. Now, he doesn't solve everything. He doesn't go. But he sits back and he says, you know, and he said something to me very important. Because we're always judging the situation. You know, is this person trying to trick us? Do they really need this? Maybe they're going to spend it on drugs and alcohol, and we can't help. And so Rusty looks at me and he says, you know, Matthew, I can guarantee you he'll appreciate that $5 a lot more than I will, no matter how he spends it. And I thought, here's this man who didn't think about what is, could I, should I, what's going to. He said, you know, at the end of the day, this person is going to appreciate this much more than I do. He showed an openness to need. Because the final thing for us to be compassionate is this. Compassion is action. Look what it says in 1 John chapter 3, verse 18. Little children, let us not love in word or talk, deed and in truth. We show this sense of concern, and James is very strong here. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and be filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? Compassion is not just us giving. It's being willing to give. Being influenced by another person's story. Being influenced by their plight and their struggle and their hurt. And as Christians, we show true compassion and empathy when we open ourselves up to how people are struggling in this world. That's what people need most. That's what we need most in the church. Don't we just need somebody to show some signs of caring? That they care about what I'm going through, what you're going through. That somebody takes the time to listen and be there for us. Compassion is action. I like what John says. John makes it real. If you can help, help. That's how simple it is. If you can help, help. That doesn't mean that we're going to be good stewards. But here's the thing. We're going to be judged on how we help. But the people who take advantage of us will to take advantage of a church as somebody not you see a brother or sister in need. John says, if you can help, help. That doesn't mean you give them everything. It doesn't mean you alleviate the whole situation. It means if you can help, help. So there's this story about preachers. And you know, these preachers, sometimes we don't always do a good job of showing compassion. And so these preachers decided that they were going to go into the inner city and try to help some of the gang violence. So the preacher got together and they all discussed it on Tuesday night. What are we going to do? And then they decided. And so they got because you know, and you still don't solve, you break the and that's how you solve it. So, except for this one preacher who got tired of meeting and committing, I don't think that's a word, but that's all right. And so he to listen, to learn, not try to fix them. He's not going to solve all the problems, but he wanted to listen to them to see what was going on. Tell me about your reality. Tell me about the things you're struggling with. I'm not here to alleviate all your problems, but I'm here to show compassion and kindness. Tell me about your life. He said he learned so much that a lot and people try to fix the situation. Not really to really solve it. You came up with an idea. He negotiated a ceasefire. Eugene goes in and he makes a pact with the rival gangs. He says, you know, just for this holiday season, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, do you think we could have a ceasefire? That means you're not shooting each other. The gang members all kind of got together. And they decided. They said, can you shoot them? And he said, it was in the early confusion. And the gang member said, what time? During that time, not a single shot. Did it solve all the violence? Did it make everything perfect? No. But he could help, and he helped in a small way, but a significant way, because he brought about healing. But the reason he was able to do something, because he didn't come in to try to fix the problem. He entered into the situation to listen, to be compassionate. And because of that, he was able to have an influence for good. Why did Jesus Christ have such a huge impact in this world? It's because he came. He came as man. He listened. He opened himself up to the world that we live in. And he showed us true compassion and saved us. If you want to respond to a Lord like that, if you will believe, confess, repent, be baptized for remission of your sins, rise up out of that water to newness of life. But the invitation this week, particularly for this congregation, as we try to be more like Jesus Christ. I know people have been focusing on encouragement last week. I had one person send me a great note, and I appreciated it. I know you have been encouraging one another. You've been thinking about encouraging. So this week, the invitation is this. How will you show compassion to one another? And how will you show compassion to somebody in need? Why don't you think about that or come as we stand and sing the invitation song.